Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is the episode of the Pivotcast. It's the name that I just came up with for my minute interview series today. I'm your host, Sarah the Pivoter, and here on the Pivotcast, I interview super rad humans from around the world doing rad things in all walks of life. So this is a platform to share their voice, their story, and bring value to you. So I'm going to be looking off screen because I also have IG going. We're doing all the tech, all the things. And I'm really stoked to be here with you guys today. We're going to hear some super rad ideas from today's guest, and she's going to give us the down low on some simple steps for owning your essence so that you can use it more effectively in your branding. No matter where you're tuning in from today, please do share your comments and ask questions with us live. This interview is going to be posted after the fact across all socials when we finish. So without further ado, let me bring our guest on, Candace. Welcome, Candace. Thank you for being here.
Hello, hello. So I have to say, I'll just be blunt because that's kind of part of my brand and my personality. I don't do video very well, so thanks for having me. I might be squirmy and awkward.
That's okay. Thank you for being here. I love having people on as a first-time guest. And, we learn how to pivot. We learn how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So before we get started, I'm just going to give a little bit of an intro for Candace. So Candace is a fiery Leo mixed with a healthy dose of hermit. So she's born as a sweet Southern girl, raised as a hard-edged East Coast girl, and she's continued to recreate herself. A serial entrepreneur with zero fear of failure, Candace has started many businesses around the globe, from vintage clothing reseller to owner of a photo studio and event space. She's a branding and essence photographer currently based in the San Francisco Bay Area with a need to travel, and she's currently on the East Coast. So Candace is the founder of the Essence Project, a passionate endeavor to help women embrace their fears, passion, and purpose and turn them into art. When she's not helping women to embody their essence and create memorable images that tell their story, you can find her dancing, soaking in the natural surroundings, or sitting quietly with a juicy book, which I absolutely love that part. That was my favorite of your intro. So Candace, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your essence with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Essence Project and, how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for asking. So the Essence Project, I don't know how much of the story I want to tell you, but I was recounting for myself today, actually, as I was driving. So basically, the project itself smacked me in the forehead, and I was on retreat. I had actually been invited to Tulum, Mexico, for the first time. It was my first time getting to Tulum, which is a magical vortex, and so I was there photographing this retreat experience, and these amazing women. There were like 20 amazing women. I think there were 22 technically, and I just had this idea in the sweat lodge to photograph all these women. So I just got a new lens, and I was like itching to try out this lens, and I said, I have all these amazing humans to photograph. Why don't I do this thing? And I came up with 3 simple questions, and it was basically, I asked them where they want to sit, stand, and meditate, and one word that personifies who they are. And that's it. And each one of them showed up with something wildly different, and they got to choose the location. So that it was basically like choose your own adventure. And it was a self-guided tour exploring the vicinity of the island where we were. And what came out of it kind of changed the trajectory of my life. So, and it really, like, the feedback that I got from those women and that experience proved to me that women need this shit. We just want to be seen, and we want to be creative, and we really want to have the freedom to do whatever the fuck we want and make it beautiful. So that's the nut of the Essence Project. It's basically giving women permission to be whatever it is that they want to be in this moment right now.
I love that. That is beautiful. And I love that you came up with this idea in the sweat lodge as well. And that you were able to help bring this kind of safety to the women so that they could express, because I think there's a lot of fitting in boxes, right? Especially for women. Absolutely. We are always put in boxes, and sometimes we put ourselves there, right? And even when we have the door open, we're like Stockholm syndrome. We stay inside that box. So I really love that you have this opportunity in that space and to see the magic unfold before you and capture it on your photos. So for everybody that's watching, we'll definitely be sharing all the links for Candace so you can find her on Instagram and Facebook. I know she plays a bit more on Facebook, but just so you can see the beauty of her photographs and also reach out if that's something of interest. And I love that you use Sweat Lodge, because I did one of my very first Sweat Lodges last month as well, as part of a plant medicine ceremony. And we're streaming live right now onto LinkedIn as well. And we're breaking the norms there, because sometimes people don't go on LinkedIn to talk about these things. And I don't know why. I saw a beautiful photo of a woman CEO the other day, and she was taking a selfie, and it was posted by the female lead. And she said, "This is what a female CEO looks like." And she was just wearing a tank top, and she had an arm sleeve tattoo and, like, I think pink hair. And I was like,
Nice.
yes, because this is a real human being. This is
Yeah.
not some polished, let's look like everybody else in a suit and, fit into this box that we're supposed to be in. And this is just real life. And I actually commented on it. And from that comment, got likes and then connected with some other super rad humans. So it's just amazing, this interweb that we can play on.
It's true. Just by being honest and giving compliments, it goes really far. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. And, I love that you just said that, because how much does it cost us to pay a compliment to somebody else? A genuine compliment, right? Don't go giving falsities and brown nosing people, because we can all tell when that's happening. But just to say, hey, you look nice today, or you made my day because of whatever action, those small things make such a huge difference. Now,
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
your photography, do you have, like, I know you have an event space, but I see a lot of your photos are out in nature. So can you tell me a little bit more about your process? Like, when you start
Yes.
working with someone, how can you get them to come into their own essence?
Yeah. So I don't have an event space. I actually shut it down
Okay. Oh, you did?
at the
Okay.
at the at the middle of the pandemic, and I said, you know what? This box doesn't fit anymore. So I closed the box. And I've been just
Good.
like fluttering around the states, mostly in a couple countries.
Yeah.
And I think as an artist, as a human, as a woman, we have to continue to evolve. And I think
Mm.
realistically, like, the point of the pandemic was a global shakedown, and you either figure out who you are or you don't. So
Yeah.
I think it's all a self-reflection revolution. And you're either, what are you doing? Are you in?
Yeah.
Are you out?
Yeah.
So
I
I
love
think
it.
a big part of my work and I'm going to say how I see people. So one of my magic powers is seeing people's potential. And I think a lot of why I love my job and why it's so easy, like, I don't work. When I'm actually doing my job, I don't work at all. I hate social
Yeah.
media. That's work. So, but you're like playing with people and like getting them to like actually get deeper into who they are and be able to show that. Love that shit. And I think
Mm.
part of how I do it is just asking curious questions. So what I found is that we're all just kids. Like, we're all just kids, and we
Mm.
really just want to
Yeah.
play. And when we grow up and we start adulting and we have all these responsibilities, we forget how to play. And so
Yes.
what I consider my real job is like helping remind people that play is necessary, bitches. You gotta play. So
Yes.
I design all of my photo shoots to be fun and energetic and lively. And if you need it, you're gonna cry. So basically, like, the essence photographer, like, somebody actually named me that. It took me a solid 2 years to actually be like, I don't know, is that really me? I don't know. Okay. And
And now
it was
you
like
own
this
it.
continual evolvement of like accepting myself and saying, yeah, okay, if somebody else sees that in me, then that is what I do. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have a process necessarily, but it always starts with curiosity and getting to what they actually want to say. So I think like the biggest part of my work is opening the door to the message. Like, I think everybody has
I
a
love that.
powerful
Yeah.
point. We all have something to say. Some of us don't know how to articulate it. Some of us don't want to
Right.
say it, but we all have something to say. And that's the fun part of my work. And I think if you make a good photograph, you can actually be really specific and poignant with giving it a
Mm.
message.
Yeah,
And I'll stop.
that's beautiful. I love that. Now, the power of play cannot be understated. I mean, there's so much science and research that's gone into that, and not just for children. Obviously, as a developing human being, it's super important,
Yeah.
because that's how we learn relationships. That's how we learn, not just with other people, but with objects, with nature, with things around us. but as an adult, we forget to play. You hit the nail on the head, especially my friends on LinkedIn watching this. When we're in a corporate
Yes,
box, we often forget how to play, and we need that
exactly.
reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally I've never had a job. So I just continue to make up jobs. So I don't have that, I'm gonna call it a real world experience because like the last job that I had was a lifeguard at a pool. So it
I
doesn't
love it.
count.
Well,
Yeah.
it does.
So
It's just what world are you living in, right? And this is going into that concept of let's create our own reality. And that's exactly what you're
mhm,
doing, right? Instead
there
of
we go.
waiting for, oh, that box looks like maybe I can squeeze into it, you're, no, I'm going to create this box. And then tomorrow it's going to be a triangle. And then the next day it's a hexagon. And then it's, I don't even know what, but I'm here and I'm doing it.
Yeah. Clouds. I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time in the clouds.
That's good. Clouds are also, they're amorphous and
Right.
they
Yeah.
change shape and
They
they
change shape
sometimes are
and
dense and heavy and other times light and fluffy.
yeah, they ignite your imagination. Like you can see one cloud and see something totally different and somebody else perceives it in an opposite way. So it's
Yeah.
like it's a spark to the imagination and it just allows for creativity.
Yeah, beautiful. So when you do shoots outside, I imagine that it's probably a bit easier for people to get into a creative space than it might have been in a studio.
Absolutely.
Would you say that's accurate?
I
Yeah.
do say that. Yeah. I think, you know, it depends on the scenario. It depends on what we're actually doing because some of
Right.
the clients I work with, there's an intimacy, there's a trust, and there's also a fear of being seen. So
Mm,
I have to really know what it is that the goal is they want to accomplish in order to
right.
help create the scene. Because some things are much safer in a studio where they know
Right.
that nobody's going to walk in, nobody's going to see them, nobody's going to like I don't see them crying. Like there's
Right.
a process. Like a lot of people, specifically women, and that's why I work mostly with women, is to like to let them do it. Just let them do it.
Yeah.
And I actually did a shoot last month. Time where this woman like she came up with this amazing idea. She's like, "This is my story. This is how I want to tell it. This is the images that I want." And then we get to the location, and she's like, "This is the spot. This is it." And there are people fucking everywhere, and like she lost her shit. Like she had a plan. She had a like this whole expectation for herself, and then there were humans, and so you
Mm,
have to like how do you navigate that? How do you make
right.
room for the reality of surroundings and things that
Mm,
you cannot control and still achieve the goal that you want to.
yeah.
So, those are the fun ones for me because it's like
It's
testing all of my
amazing.
skills. It's like, okay, so do
Yeah.
we renegotiate and go to a different location where there aren't people? Do I just let you like break down and cry and
Go through the process.
like
Yeah.
just be the toddler, embrace your toddler and just let that shit go. Like you're literally in the woods. Nobody's actually paying attention to you because
Right.
humans don't give a shit most of the time.
No, or
They're just on their
they're
hike.
too wrapped up in their own
They're just on their
internal
hike, like, they're doing
narrative.
their thing,
Yeah.
and, if you're, like, on a rock like, at one point, we actually had her up on this, like, pedestal, basically, and she was performing, she took up all the space, and everybody was, like, clapping, and they're like, "Yeah, girl, you go."
Amazing.
So there
Yeah.
was, like, this evolution of what her shoot was because, like, it started with, "Oh, shit, I'm doing this thing," and then by the end of it, she
Mm,
was fucking standing on a mountaintop, and it was glorious.
that's
So
amazing. I love it. And the word glorious is a
right.
glorious word.
That's
It's
why I love
just
my job. It's
divine.
it's like just you gotta give space, man. You gotta just allow
Yeah.
for people to do what they need to do to get to where they need to get.
Yes. And it is a process. And I like how you alluded to the toddler because we all have one inside of us.
They
And
do,
most adults,
and some of them
especially,
don't get to cry.
um, yeah, in the corporate world, in society, there's rules, right? It's don't cry, don't let people see you be vulnerable. I mean, yes, there's a lot of talk about vulnerability and leadership, but you don't want somebody, the ugly cry, right? You don't want to
Right,
be doing that in front of the team, especially as a woman in leadership. There's a lot of like, I don't want them to think I'm emotional. I need to be seen as a strategic leader. And, it's not like nothing can be blamed on my femininity. And so I see this healing of the divine masculine, divine feminine coming together, and the next generations are a lot more. I mean, there's the woke culture, but sometimes that's a bit too far. And it's like, all right, guys, calm down. Like, let's just laugh at
right,
ourselves. Not everything has to
right.
be super, on point all the time. But it's this real rawness that when you can hold this space for people, create a container where they can just let it out and be seen for the first time, then that's amazing. Because as you said, they want to be seen. We all want to be seen, but we're not
Yeah,
always ready
yeah,
when it actually is in front of us. Then we go, oh shit, wait, what does that mean? What's going to happen?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
true. And it can be uncomfortable, and I know this really well. So before I was a photographer, I was a model. So I was in front of many, 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 many cameras. And so I know all the shit, and I know how much it actually takes to be able to be in front of a camera. And
Mm,
there's a lot of stuff that gets stuck in your brain and your body. And if you allow the thoughts to stay there, then you can't actually be in the body. So I
right.
think that's another important piece of what I do is um, giving people I give them one thought, like I tend to use adjectives a lot, like focus
Yeah.
on the thing, the word that you want people to actually receive. Like, what is the goal of this image? We're making one photograph. We're not doing this whole thing. It's just this moment right now. What is it?
Yeah.
And it just makes it
That's
really
amazing.
simple and a little less overwhelming. And when you actually think of a word like strong, how do you
Mm,
embody strong? Like, how do you actually make your body say that word?
right. Yeah. Oh, I have goosebumps. I have chills because it's very true. And when we're in our minds, we can't be in our bodies. We don't have the awareness of our environment, let alone what's going on internally. Right. And that is where a lot of times, like traditional jobs, especially in the corporate world, require us to be is in the mind. Even the word mindfulness, right? And this word gets thrown around a lot, and a lot of people have different definitions for it. But for me, it's more about the body mind integration. How do we make sure that we can be present with the human in front of us rather than in the
Absolutely.
mind for the next thing, which we sometimes get stuck in because we're thinking about building our careers or our family or the business, whatever that may be. So that's really
Yeah.
nice to keep it
And,
in the center.
we can't forget the heart because that's at the center of
Yeah.
everything. So, yeah,
Exactly. And the heart has neurons. So, it is making decisions. It's just like the brain. The gut has neurons as well. So, there's a lot that
absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
now learning about the body mind connection. And there's the Heart Math Institute, which is amazing. There's a lot of studies that go into like the energy output that our hearts have. And, our hearts are an oscillator. So, if you're,
Hmm.
um, it's a 528 megahertz. So if you go on YouTube and you Google 528 MHZ, excuse me, you'll be able to have a very soothing sound. But because it's an oscillator, what that means is if you're out of sync, if you're vibrating at some other frequency of anxiety or whatever, it's racing because you're full of adrenaline, you can put that on and it will help regulate your heart. There's a lot of studies and science behind this. This is not like woo-woo. This is actually legitimately tested. And that also means that when you're in resonance with the people around you, that's why if there's somebody that's super calm in the midst of chaos, everybody else can calm down. Or when somebody's losing their shit, like your client when she saw, oh shit, all these people, if you're not able to be strong, then you might get affected by that. So that's a
Hmm.
really quite interesting point of
Yeah.
science there along it. Yeah,
Thank you for that
amazing.
fabulous little lesson. Well, that makes sense. I use the 528 a lot. Like when I can't, I try to meditate every day, but sometimes I can't. So I'll just put that on and just let the thoughts subside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Even
really
if I
beautiful
can't.
sound, and if you need, like, falling asleep, I find it's really great too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So for you, I know you've obviously had a lot of time both in front of and behind the cameras. So can you tell us a little bit about, like, one of your maybe most unexpected shoots? Did you ever have a situation where you thought, "Oh, shit, this is not really going well," or I mean, I don't know if you've ever photographed men, but she's not, able
I
to
do.
get into it, and then you had this breakthrough moment and, something magical happened? I'm sure it happens all the time, but something that really stands
Um, Let me think about that. Yes. Yeah. Okay. It was in Mexico actually. So I was working with a client again. So a lot of I would say what I help women specifically, like, so from what I found, and here's my personal opinion, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but from my experience, it's easier to work with men because they don't get stuck as much. like what I found is like the women hold on to the stories more, whereas the guys somehow just move through them faster. They still have the stories and shit still comes up, but it's not as like abrupt and invasive. So one of my clients she was actually having like personal drama with her fiance. So like life stuff was in the way. So her actually showing up, being present for herself was a little challenging because she was distracted by everything else that was going on in the household. So we just brought all of that into the shoot and just made it part of the shoot because, you know, from how I work with people, it's about the different characters that we hold. So, and how you really get to the depths of your essence of who you are is figuring out which part of you is coming first. So we all carry lots of selves within this little human frame. But if you can actually speak to the one that needs to be heard, then everything else will just fall into place because one is always speaking louder. And so we played with her lover because her lover was not getting what she needed. So when we took the lover to the beach and just let her splash around in the water and like be sexy and embrace like what she actually wanted, like giving herself the romance and the pleasure and the everything else that her body was not getting, then everything else was just easier. And then she went back to her fiance and they got engaged like the next week. And it was just like, what just happened? So that was pretty cool.
Amazing. That's so awesome. And I love that, you know, what you said about the characters and what self needs to be seen. That's really powerful because we, as you said before, we all have these inner children. We all want to be seen and heard, but then it's scary at the same time when it finally happens. And I think a lot of that is also because we don't know how to articulate. We don't know how to actually say what it is that we want and need. And identifying that and having help identifying, okay, like as you said, what needs to be seen and heard in you? What needs to come to the front and take the stage for a while and just get that attention? Because what I found is when we acknowledge what that is, the need, it's like oxygen, right? When it's there, we don't notice and we don't appreciate it and we just do our thing and we're happy. But then all of a sudden it's not there and like shoving people out of our way to try and get back to air, you know, pulling regulators out of people's mouths underwater and, you know, all these types of behaviors that we wouldn't normally do. Yeah, it's because I've seen it happen. So, you know, then, but by making sure that need is met, then everything, as you said, can be smooth sailing. And I love that you helped her meet that need herself, you know, and showed her that that's possible, because I think that's a great message for women and everybody in general. Like, we don't need somebody else to fulfill that need. We can fulfill that need ourselves. And that's a much stronger place to be, especially from branding, as you mentioned, when they can then own this part of themselves, then when they show up, they match the branding rather than like putting up some polished image and then there's something completely different.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like, yeah, as I continue to evolve how I create, I guess, or how I see people, both are kind of similar. The characters and like who we're embodying is really important. And what I've also found really interesting and fascinating is each character, like each piece of us has their own unique message too. Like they all have like a statement, this thing that they want to be known for, they want to be seen for, or, you know, defines them. So it's really quite fascinating to like see how people can express themselves.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm sure even though like some of the characters might be, you know, stronger personalities, they might be the kind of mostly the main character, and there's some others that are secondary or supporting, or, you know, they only come out certain times. But those are still equally as important, right? To also give some time and space to, because if you just had a story with the main character and nobody else, it would be kind of boring, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, that's nice.
Yeah. But there's so much more depth and nuance when you can bring all these things together. And I think, you know, your message is beautiful because it's also showing people that all these pieces that make us up are so important for us to like merge rather than putting in silos. Again, not putting them in boxes like, oh, here's work version and here's family version and here's like athletic version. and all these different silos we typically compartmentalize into, but how do we
Right. Yeah.
learn to play with all of them and be able to, as I would say, pivot in between all the characters with more grace and agility rather than like it being super clunky, or if your worlds merge, it's like separate worlds of George and all of a sudden you're like, who am I supposed to be right now? I don't know. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think that's often what I see with working with clients is like if they don't pay attention, a lot of it, it's all self-exploration really. Like
Mm,
in order to accomplish any good, most things in life, but specifically photo shoot, like you have to know who you are. You have to know who
yeah.
you are. And you
Yeah.
have to, and the easiest way to do that is to stop and just take a breath. And just pay attention. Just pay attention to who you are and where you're at and what's actually going on in your body. There's a lot of sensations in our body that tell us things that we often don't listen
Mm,
to.
yeah. Absolutely. Our bodies are very intelligent. They give us messages all the time, but we try
All
to
the time, all day long.
ignore them or control them or deny them. And I don't want that. I don't need that. Right. Because of whatever programming we have from somewhere else. But as we start to listen more, then as you said, things become easier. They just do because you're not fighting your true nature.
Yeah, exactly.
So for people who, I mean, they may not necessarily be in your region, but obviously, I think they're going to be very inspired by speaking with you and looking up how they can do these types of shoots. But what would you say? So let's say somebody's gone through this process, whether it's through photography, whether it's through some other means, they're working with a coach, they're doing a program of some kind of retreat, for example, where a lot of things come up during these things. What would you say to them is the best way they can then, once they find out what their essence is, how they start to use that in their branding?
I think, part of the main thing is the message. So, each one of these characters comes through
Mm,
based on what it is that you actually want to say. And so for me, just to give like my personal example, I work with archetypes, my characters, and my artist is the one that leads most of the time, like the creative, the fire, the energy, the one that like wants to motivate, wants to inspire, wants to show up in a certain way. Um, so most of the time when I show up online and do social media, it's from my artist.
mm,
So I think a lot of it is, sitting quietly with yourself, like journal prompts. I think it's much easier with a guide, somebody that can see you, like somebody outside
mm.
of you that can reflect. So even just asking curious questions to your friends or
Yeah.
someone that's close to you that knows you, um, getting to know yourself better helps you to show up in your honest essence.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And yeah, that guide is super important, because then they can be that mirror, right? They can reflect back
Mhm.
to you what you might not be able to see. Right now, it's a little bit murky for you, and that's okay,
Can be.
right? And it's just a way to get that perspective. And I think what I found also helpful was, um, not only kind of journaling yourself, self reflecting, but then, as you said, pick one word for your essence, right? So, like going to your kind of close circle of friends and say, hey, if you had to choose a couple of words to describe me, what would you pick? Because then you
Mhm.
start to understand what other people are receiving from you. Because sometimes we have a
Right.
message, but our intention is not landing the way that we want it to. And so then that will help us see, oh, really? They think that? Like, oh my goodness, what am I, doing that is making them have this impression? And then that can help with the process a little bit as well.
Absolutely. And then you can help pivot back to where you're supposed to be or where you want to be,
Yeah,
how you want to be
exactly.
received. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
it's a delicate balance between like what you're putting out there and how you actually want to be received. Because it's synergy, like
Yeah.
people don't remember who you are unless you tell them. So,
Mm,
and that's
yes.
really what a brand is and how you actually show up and express. Like no one's really going to get a feel for who you are unless they feel you. So,
Mm, yes. I love that. I love that if you don't tell them, they won't know. And I think from a branding perspective, and like if you have a business, you are obviously your business, you are the brand. And even when it becomes a big corporate business as well, if you don't tell
absolutely. Yeah.
people, then of course then they're guessing, and then it's this like assumptions, and of course that's where all things go wrong. Everything goes
It's true.
haywire
Yeah.
when there's
Yeah, and then
assumptions
they
being
fill in the
made.
blanks for you, and then you're like, "Shit, what did I just do?"
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're like really clear and really specific, then there's no confusion.
Yeah, beautiful. Have you ever had someone come to you and say, like, this is what I want to do, this is who I am, and through the process of the photo shoot, other characters come out and it then completely changes?
Yesterday. Yes. Yes, often. Yeah. Well, a lot, yes. Short answer is yes. A lot of people think that they want to be this thing,
Mhm.
which is disconnected from who they are. So,
Mm,
I would say, like, that happens all the time, and a lot of people are, they think, "Okay, you're a branding photographer, you can help me get my brand," and they just want the
right.
pictures with the balloons and the confetti and all that bullshit that everybody else is doing, and then when I get to know them, I'm like, "Dude, you're like T-shirts and motorcycle boots. Why do you wanna do confetti and balloons? No, I
Yeah,
can't do that for you." So, a lot
yeah.
of it is, like, again, it's like asking curious questions and figuring out, like, why? Why do you want
Mm.
to do that?
And I think it's
So,
giving them that space, like, or that permission to be that
yeah,
thing. They probably don't have other areas in their life where they feel like they have that permission. So I think that
yeah.
this is like more of a isn't this is not just a photo shoot. This is really, you know, letting people show up how they want to show up and then allowing them that pathway forward to see what's possible.
I love that. I'm stealing that.
Yeah, definitely, of course. You can insert that into your Essence branding. Beautiful. So, where can our guests and viewers find you? I will be posting what you sent me before, but like, where do you have most of your content? Where would you like to direct people to?
So my website is theessencephotographer.com, THE, essencephotographer.com. And that's all my social. My handle is the Essence Photographer all over everything.
Yeah,
I like to keep it simple.
yeah.
Um,
Simple and sweet.
yeah. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I don't do any of the other things because that's kind of a lot for me.
Yeah.
Technically, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can tag me or something. But I think I've posted three things there in the
Yeah.
last 12 years I've been on it or something.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much.
And
I'm sure there's other platforms that we don't even know about, but it's
yeah, I
okay.
keep thinking I'll do TikTok, maybe someday.
I know TikTok, I just feel like I don't have the energy for it. But at least I'm using this wonderful tool called StreamYard, which is how we're able to
Yeah, this is
go
great. This
into
is fun.
multiple platforms. Yeah. So amazing. So I will make sure that on the Facebook group and the LinkedIn will tag you and have the information there. And when we post this video on Instagram as well, we'll have your handle so people can go and find you and connect should they have any further questions.
Yes. I should also mention I do have a Facebook community as well, and it's
Yes.
called Play and Purpose, and it's designed for women entrepreneurs because it's a lot of,
Beautiful.
again, it's curious questions. It's basically guiding them deeper into who they are and what they wanna say.
Yeah.
So it's just a fun little community that's going to be pivoting soon, actually, because I want to
Amazing.
focus it more on personal branding and like visibility and how you actually want to show up.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just a fun place for chicks to hang out.
I love it. Play on purpose. Definitely a
Yeah,
fun place. So
yeah,
we'll make sure if I missed that, make sure you comment that as well so that people can jump in. I think that's totally fun. I'm definitely going to come play on purpose in there.
yes.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, Candace, for being with me here today. And for all
This
of
was
you
fun. Thank
guys
you.
joining us from around the world, wherever you are, thank you so much. Would love for you guys to comment when the videos are posted with your biggest takeaway. What did you love about the session? And remember that real pivoters are human beings just like me and you. So all it takes is the choice to do something different. So go out today and choose something that's going to make you sparkle just a little bit more and keep on keeping on. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys soon. Whoops.